Sober Business Network news channel. So I'm Janet Hadley and I am your host. I'm the founder of the Sober Business Network, and my guest this week is Shell Righini. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So, Michelle, let's dive right in and have a little chat about your entrepreneurial journey. So, should we start off by hearing just a little bit about you and about your business?
Right, where to start? So my name is Michelle, or everybody calls me Shell, unless I'm in trouble. Um, so I immediately feel like I'm in trouble after being introduced as Michelle.
Sorry.
I I've worked in the hospitality industry since I finished university. So I did psychology at university, and then I did a master's in urban culture and photography at Goldsmiths, which is about as useful as it sounds. But it was I always really struggled at school. I never kind of found my footing, but I love my master's degree, so it's one of the things that I kind of think to myself, had I not been through what I had at school, I would never have got to do my master's degree. So that kind of helps me, kind of deal with that process. But then I had to I had to make some money, as we do. I did do an internship for about a year just after my degree in PR and events. Getting paid an absolute pittance, and eventually I had to make money, which is normally how most of us fall into hospitality. And my family's worked in hospitality for generations, on my dad's side of the family, so I started working for a company called Gaucho, and it was an immediate kind of moment of everything aligning. It's like a Disney film, where suddenly everything just kind of makes sense. And for me, I found within weeks the place that I could thrive, and the kind of environment where my unique skill set and my unique kind of personality, which we all have these unique things, that finally I found something where it was more celebrated, let's say. And then I worked in hospitality for my entire career. I have worked in every kind of restaurant, from silver service to dive bar to fast-paced quick service to just literally anything and everything. I've tended to work more with independent brands. But the thing that I love most about my roles has been anything that's around training and mentorship. So I've always leaned into roles that allowed me to facilitate learning and development of others. And that's continued for my whole career. And then, unfortunately, as a lot of us found in our industry, COVID was a really challenging time. The business that I work with, we continue to work, but it was a incredibly reduced workforce, and an incredibly increased business. We went crazy busy. We were a fancy burger place, so perfect for a takeaway. We opened second or third week of, the last week of March, because we locked down mid-March, and by the end of March we were already open, and in a small town in Worcester. So we were it was insanity, and we worked hours that even hospitality people will kind of shed a tear at. And unfortunately, after a whole lifetime of hospitality, working hard, playing hard, it all kind of came crashing down at the end of that period, which saw me developing a condition called fibromyalgia. So I can't physically work in restaurants anymore, and that's now been 3 years. So this is where I've had to start thinking outside the box. I can't rely on my physicality anymore to do the things I love. And so, to be honest, the last 3 years has been kind of a bit of hit and miss, discovery, tears, grief, acceptance, throwing toys out the pram, the whole shebang, as I try and figure out what my next, when do we get to retire these days? What my next 30 plus years look like in an industry I still love, but how I can do that in a way that not only I can flourish and thrive, but I can use the fact that I love mentoring and pushing other people. What can I do that also kind of embraces that side of myself, and the things I love to do, while using all of the things that happened to me in the past, to hopefully shine a light on making our industry a better place to work. Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. And I know that we met as a result of you listening to the Professional Drinkers podcast, didn't we? And we've certainly had a few conversations about how we can potentially work together to look at bringing some of this kind of standardisation of how employers can create more inclusive workspaces for people who choose not to drink. And also support people who potentially are struggling with addiction and hidden addiction in the workplace. So is that the route that you're going to be going down, do you think, with your business? Tell us a bit more about kind of your business setup and what you're aiming to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's, in our industry, it's not a hidden secret. That's the difference between hospitality and other industries, is actually you hide in plain sight. It's an open secret. A lot of industries that yourself and I have discussed going to with programs that you have developed, there's resistance. People going, oh, hang on, we don't have a problem with alcohol, so I'm not too sure why you're coming to us with this. Hospitality, nobody will say that it's not a problem. If they do, they're lying. We know it's a problem, but like you say, what we need for our industry is something that is, I don't mean easy in a way that it makes it sound like a tick box, but something that is easy to implement, easy to follow through on, and impactful, but in a short space of time, because we don't have time. And what happens is that we don't prioritize it, because anything that takes up too much of our time and attention in the industry and takes too much time away from customers and making money, which is why we do it, unfortunately is really difficult not only to implement but to ensure that it's followed through. So that's why creating programs and adapting and developing programs with yourself that make sense to an industry that is never off, that's definitely a real drive. And then, as I'm sure lots of people can relate to, you start off with an idea 3 years ago. I always think I've come up with something, by the way, and it turns out I haven't. There's someone else doing it already. So my initial idea was to create these supportive spaces for people who are struggling in our industry, much like an AA room, much like a 12-step, a peer support group. I thought I'd revolutionise the idea. I hadn't. There's something like that exists. But the fact that it exists and I didn't know about it shows you something. So I...
Does that matter? I mean, imagine I wanted to set up as an accountant and then I found that there was other accountants. Would that matter?
I don't think it does, because I think at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about addiction in particular, for me, it's about hearing multiple people's voices, multiple people's stories. Nobody has got the same story. You can sit in a room of recovery and there'll be 50 people, or I do a meeting in person in Bethnal Green on a Saturday. There's about 150 people, all of them young, all of them, covered in body piercings and tiny little beanies and, all achingly cool. None of them have got the same story. And therefore, like you say, anything that shares more than one perspective. But I am going to be collaborating, because actually I think that's also very important as an entrepreneur, is to understand when to go with your own idea and when to pause and collaborate. When is it ego and when is it actually beneficial? So in this instance, I've realised that me trying to create my own meeting space for now is actually ego driven rather than sense. And I'm going to be working with an incredible organisation called Ben's Friends, who have set up these groups in the USA and Canada. They've got nothing like that in the UK, so we're going to open a Ben's Friends chapter in the UK. Because why am I going to spend time? Why spend time building something that's already incredible? Rather work with it than against it, I guess. And that frees up my time to build other things. So And that's kind of where we've fallen into now with Radical Hospitality. So Radical Hospitality is being set up to break down the narratives in our industry that we just expect to always be there. Oh, we work 80, 90 hours a week because it's hospitality. Oh yeah, there's blatant sexual harassment, but we do nothing about it because it's hospitality. There's the pay gap. There's the unsafe, psychologically and physically unsafe workplace environments. The things that I look back on and think about how I allowed to happen to me, to my team, that I did. I'm not proud of it, but that there's never a repercussion for, because it's hospitality. So with Radical Hospitality, we're going to be building leaders that are breaking those stereotypes, choosing to do things differently, supporting them to do it differently. And the power of that is what we're calling the ripple effect, and how by changing just one person in an organization, or being yourself, the ripple effect of that on all the people around you, because you and I know we both are in recovery, the ripple effect on our own families and our own friendships by our decision to be different, to do something different. So that's the basis of Radical Hospitality. So we will be doing a lot of addiction training, but we'll also be doing lots of other stuff, but developing. So
Exciting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic, and it is radical. And you're right, because I've had jobs in hospitality, and it's a long time ago now, but the rules are different. It's a little bit Wild West, isn't there? Anything goes. It just depends on the owner. It depends on their attitude and and I honestly, I do think that some of the people I've worked for in the hospitality industry are just completely unemployable and would never get a job anywhere, and that's how they've ended up setting up on their own.
There's a news story at the minute, and I'll not put details in because nobody's 100% sure, but effectively there's a restaurant, there's a hotel group in Europe. There's been accusations of this horrendous hazing experience that a kitchen porter has been through. Very violent. Sounds like something that you would read about in an old book at like an old private boys' school, or just these awful things. And when I heard about it, my first reaction obviously was, that's horrendous. But do you know what? In my gut I went, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Because there is, like you said, it's that wild, so sad that your first reaction isn't like, that can't be true. It's like, yeah, I can see the way that I've allowed myself to be treated in the last 17, 18 years in this industry at times is, if I'd heard of, you've got daughters, if your daughters came home and said, this has happened to me at work, you'd be like, are you in what? You would be straight out there. You would mama bear the shit out of it. But you don't do that to yourself, do you? You don't do it for yourself. And you certainly don't in our industry, because then, especially as a woman, you're difficult. Why are you being so difficult? Don't be dramatic. Don't be reactive. It's a very male-dominated industry, which is another thing that at Radical Hospitality we're going to really work on, is kind of creating not just safe workplaces, but specifically for females and gender non-conforming people in an environment that's so male-dominated. How do we make it safe psychologically, physically, emotionally, and not in a way that means that everyone's tiptoeing around, but just in an inclusive way? It's all about that.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. This has evolved quite a bit since we had a conversation about your business, so really excited to hear about it.
If we put this conversation side by side with the one we had in March, I think, or May.
It's done a lot. Interesting. So,
exactly.
Michelle, tell me a bit about what you've learned then since you set out on your entrepreneurial journey. What would you say was your biggest learning?
I think actually, to be honest, that we've already touched on it, that it's not about ego, and it doesn't matter if it's already happened, and it doesn't matter if it's already been done. That doesn't mean, it's not about me, it's about the greater picture. And I ensure now that I'm making decisions that are not based on what works for me, but what works for the company. And when I say the company, that's quite hilarious, because at the minute the company is me. But I'm building it. I'm wanting to build it so it's a company where all personalities, all talents, and I network. So while the company is just me, I've got a very big network of support and kind of people that I'm collaborating with. And that's been a huge part for me, I think, is to, an ego, especially people who are in recovery or people who have been in addiction. Ego is something that sometimes has quite a negative connotation, but ego is what's protected us. Ego is what's kept us alive at times. It's not a bad thing to have, but I always now question, is this decision based on my wants and needs, or is it based on the potential of the company? And like I said with the whole Ben's Friends things, why am I trying to create something when something incredible exists? I can collaborate, I can coexist. I've interviewed the founder of Ben's Friends. He's coming up in a podcast episode very soon. That for me, I think, has been a really important lesson. Collaboration, networking. We, not I.
Are there any mistakes that you've made that you would advise other entrepreneurs to avoid?
Oh God, yeah, thousands. Getting stuck. Oh God, getting stuck on having to be perfect. Getting stuck on having to have everything ready before starting. And you know this about me more than a lot of people because of the time we've spent in our own kind of powwows and stuff, and I'm getting there, but not being able to let go when things are at 20% of where you want them to be. So I'm busy going, I can't possibly launch a company because I've not got 78 products that I'm selling, and I've not got an office, and I haven't got a logoed notepad, and I haven't got a logo, and I haven't got, and that fear around everything not being absolutely perfect, because I do compare myself. We do that. We look at others and we go, oh my God, look at these, and you don't compare like for like. I'll look at a company that's got a massive infrastructure, that's got funding, that's got money, and I'll go, oh, I'm nothing like them, and it's like, but we're not comparing like for like. So learning to be present where I'm at now, rather than hiding until I am where I want to be, because actually like you've just pointed out, my business has changed since we last spoke. It's not changed, sorry, it's developed. Now, if I had not been out there vocally talking about the things I wanted to do and had stuck quietly in my own head of 6 months ago, it wouldn't have developed to where it is, which I believe is going to be a much better business. So release it as it is, be out there as you are, and then allow that development to happen almost in plain sight. We want people to be vulnerable, as leaders. Vulnerability is a really positive trait, but do that as well around your business. It's not about being like, oh, I've got no money, I can't run my business, but say, hey, this is where I'm at. Do you want to come along? And being proud of that, but not doing it as an excuse. Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't look fully dressed, I don't look fully ready, because that's my other negative narrative I'll do. The over apologizing. Oh, I'm so sorry, my website looks rubbish. And no, it is where it is. Oh, I know. Don't even. do not look at the website, people.
Why are you even apologising? Honestly.
But yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, but that is, it is. I think it's a big lesson to learn to stop apologising for being where you are, and instead just embrace it and allow others to come in and say, do you need help? Do you want support? Have you thought of this? Because again, every day learn something new.
Let's have a more positive question then. So what are you most proud of, Shell?
Well, do you know what? I received a letter. This is being recorded on the 2nd of January. So I received a letter yesterday from the past. And I know. So there's a website called futureme.org, which I highly recommend everyone jumps onto. And you can write yourself a letter and it will email to the future on whatever date that you set.
Nice.
So I received a letter yesterday from myself a year ago. And I'm very much, again, I don't know if it's an addiction thing. It's definitely a neurodiverse thing. I'm very self-negative. When you grow up with neurodiversity and you're late diagnosed, it's a very common trait that you're very self-critical. So for me to read this letter yesterday and say I was proud is pretty monumentous. But in this letter, I was in a really difficult living situation. I was in a lot of pain. And I wrote in the letter how I just really hoped, at that point I'd not even started the podcast. So in the letter I'm saying, like, I really hope I've started this podcast. I really hope that I've met some people. I really hope that I've started to kind of find an authentic voice. And and obviously I really wanted to live by the sea, which I took a picture because I'd moved to Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago. Took a picture on the sea front yesterday, toes in the water. So I'm really proud of the fact that this year has been a really hard year because of people and places and things that I can't control. And there's been many times that I've wanted to, and having a physical condition like fibromyalgia kicks you in the nuts daily. Every day. Anyone living with any form of chronic fatigue, chronic condition, you know, it's hard enough just getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. So I'm really proud because there have been, over this last 12 months, so many times that I would have picked up a drink. I could have blown my whole life up in a heartbeat. And I'm not that that's ever excusable, but in a weird way, I'd have been like, yeah, of course I did. You know, people would have been like, yeah, I can see why she's where she is. But I didn't. I'm releasing season 2 of the podcast. I'm booking guests for season 3. You know, like, that's mental. I have friends in the USA now because of this podcast, you know, like, I've done it. I'm talking to you about a company. I've handed my notice in. I'm focusing on everything full time now, you know. A year ago, so it's, I'm really proud of the fact that I've made myself so uncomfortable the last 12 months.
You've done an amazing job. You have.
Because
You've done an amazing job. Yeah.
You've got to be uncomfortable. That's because that's where the growth happens, as we know. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, as we say.
Love it. Good advice. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice. And then what advice would you maybe have for any kind of fledgling entrepreneurs out there who are just thinking about making the leap or starting something up?
Network. Get bloody networking. Network. That is, for me, the ultimate best thing that I've done last year is, and again, I know that I'm is it lucky? I'm lucky in a way in that I don't have fear in just emailing people. I will literally just follow people on Instagram and just message them and be like, hey, we're doing something similar. Do you want to chat? I will follow people on LinkedIn. I've only been on LinkedIn for a year, you know, and my LinkedIn is really powerful now. It's a really important place where my future customers are hanging out. You know, find where your customers, that's another really important one I've learned as well. Go where your customers hang out. Be there and be active and be proactive. But the biggest thing is, if you see somebody you admire, if you see somebody who has what you want, all of those things, message them, set up a meeting, book a discovery call. Network, and try and always add value to those conversations so that they remember you. You know, I always make sure anytime I connect with somebody, I might give them a bit of like, oh, have you actually ever thought of, and that's not about being, oh, have you thought of doing this for your business? But, you know, I'd always try and kind of make sure that I'm really up to date and relevant. And I'll be like, oh, have you seen this new bit of tech? Or, oh my God, did you read that article? Or, you know, leave them wanting a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Good advice. I love it. And what So obviously you're one of the founding members of the Sober Business Network, so you've been in from day one. How do you think the Sober Business Network has helped you?
So far, it's been incredible. It's been a real ride. It's only been a few months, and it's born off the back of some really cool conversations that yourself, myself, Hannah were having, and how we really could see that the benefit of just the three of us supporting each other was having on our own businesses. So I really, really love to see how that kind of already that community and that support has started to grow. And I love the fact that if I have a question about something, that I've got somewhere that I can say, hey, has anyone experienced this? Does anyone know about this? And immediately there's somebody that can either, even though, the whole kind of collaborative thing, I've had just meetings with people in the group and just discussed what they've done. I've learned things from them. That's all been amazing. And the best part about it, which is people who are in recovery, we are different. I don't mean that in a negative, but we are different. We've been through something that others haven't. And that doesn't matter if you've had a really bad rock bottom like yourself, like myself, like some have, or if you've just decided to stop drinking because you don't want to drink. You're doing something that society tells you 24 hours a day that you should, could, can, must be doing. And because of that, we are different in a good way. And it's just really nice to be able to speak to people that have that thread of commonality, even though we disagree sometimes, and we're all still big personalities, and and again, I think that's also really nice. I've really enjoyed learning from the people and the passion and the different points of views. And I think the fact that I don't know if this is true, but maybe because we're in recovery, there almost seems to be more of a fairness of like listening to other, less of it being like one dominant kind of dialogue, which I really enjoy. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds. I know we've got so many ideas. I'm really excited to see what we get up to, and I'm just I can't wait to see it all grow and to see everybody's businesses grow as well, and who knows, Sober Business Network Awards.
Ooh, yeah, this time next year.
This time next year we'll be millionaires.
Oh, come on, Rodney.
All of us.
Love it. And then I have one final question, which I'm going to ask every single one of my guests, which is, what is the best thing about being sober?
Do you know the first thing that came to my head, which does mean you should always go with the first thing, but it doesn't make me look very good. The first thing that came to my head was smugness.
Oh, that is fine. I always tell my clients it's okay to be smug about being sober. It really is.
I feel it's probably because it's the 2nd of January. That might be why I'm feeling so smug. But one of the best things about being sober is, waking up on the 1st of January, walking down this. I went down the hill. I got Starbucks. Sorry, that was the only place open. But got coffee for my sister. No one else was out. It was a dead zone. It was about 9:30. I walked around the beach. There was no one around. I was just thinking to myself, right here, right now, I feel better, and I've got a chronic condition, and yet I feel better than probably 80% of the people in this city right now. And the smugness, it is also pride, You get to, every day, the best thing about being sober is you get to put your head on the pillow, knowing that you have not intentionally hurt, upset anybody in your life, anyone around you, or yourself. And that is, that is really something to be proud of, and maybe a little bit smug about at times.
Yeah, I totally agree, and there's nothing wrong with being smug about being sober. Love it. Fantastic. So before we wrap up then, just tell everyone where they can find out more about you and where they can find you on social media, etc.
So I do have a website for We Recover Loudly, www.werecoverloudly.com. I'm very active on Instagram, which is @WeRecoverLoudly. On LinkedIn, I'm not under the business name yet. I'm under Shell Righini. However, watch this space. make sure to follow on socials, because I will be doing a big rebranding exercise and everything will be getting properly launched in the coming weeks. So if you're following me on LinkedIn, following me on Instagram, my personal Instagram is Shell_Righini, where I'll also be announcing bits there. That will be the best place. And as things unfold, I will be updating and
Oh, fantastic.
all of that
Thank
stuff.
you so much, Shell. Yeah, and if you,
No worries.
if you are interested in joining the Sober Business Network, you can find us at soberbusinessnetwork.co.uk. And if you go to the join page, you can see our 3 membership levels. You can choose from a standard listing, which will get you the networking once a month and a listing in our directory. You can have a priority listing, which is exactly the same but with extra functionality in the directory, and you'll appear at the top of all the search results when people are looking for sober services. Or you can join our accelerator program, which you can read all about on our website, and that offers weekly insights, business coaching, and learning and development opportunities. And yeah, I'm super excited to be delivering some of that alongside a whole host of exciting guest speakers. So yeah,
Yes, I'm on that course. I'm really exciting. Yeah, I'm really excited. I can't wait for that to start. Yeah, it's going to be great.
We've got a fantastic business coach joining us from Action Coach called Stuart Wright, who I have learned so much from. So yeah, if you're hesitating at all, just drop me a line if you want to know anything else. I'm happy to have a chat with you. It is going to be awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm really
thanks
excited.
for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.